Àyìnkẹ́, ọkọ mi, ọmọ ọlọ́pàá yanyan òkèrúkì. Ó ṣọlá nígbà ojúlé ọmọ olójúlé ńlá. Òdìdí mọ́dẹ orí olówó. Ọba yìí. May the Lord bless and keep you.
When I was 20, I met a woman who was 40, and it was the fantastic layer that she put on the work my parents had done.
When you have a child that is behaving a little bit different, and the difference is positive, you will know by the Spirit of God to give her a chance.
I was actually very withdrawn, melancholy, very emotionally sensitive, keenly observant of the world, and deeply touched by what other young children would not even notice.
First year in the university, I was 17. That was the first time I found myself praying certain kind of prayers. God, if there's anything you want to do in my generation, don't do it without me. I was a part-time student and a full-time minister of the gospel.
They were called GGGs.
Yes.
God's great girls.
But I wasn't a mediocre student. It got to a point where lecturers would be like, look, you've earned your A. Even if you don't write this exam, I will give you an A. One evening, I was lying on my bed and these members of CAXA Fellowship came over. All of a sudden, I start to hear what one of the ladies is saying. I found my senior. She was reeling verses. I said, what? So I dropped the book, I sit up. And then she turns to me without notice, faces me and says, your heart is burning. What are you going to do about it? I cried so much that I followed her to her room in alumni. My fire has always burned strong. My conviction has always been strong. My confidence has always been off the hook.
The seed of everything that you'll see today, you could see all those things right there on campus.
In my early 20s, I would think about who would I be at 40? And how do I live today as a young person that I come into ownership, authority, impact by the time I hit the age of 40? And I'm right at that milestone. I have spent the last 2 decades being extremely intentional about life on purpose, life by design. This is my life. I'm not a spectator in my life. I am co-creating a legacy great life with God.
Good. I'm good. You look good.
My parents have played a very strategic and significant role in shaping me into the woman I have become.
When you have a child that is behaving a little bit different, and the difference is positive, you will know by the Spirit of God to give her a chance.
But as a child, by original design, I was actually very withdrawn, melancholy, very emotionally sensitive, keenly observant of the world, and deeply touched by what other young children would not even notice.
Adebola, she's a gift. Yes. As a baby, I know one thing I really remember about her is that she's a very compassionate baby. And when she was growing up, she loved, you can't even kill fowl where she is. She will run and start crying that, why will you do that? She doesn't go to market when she grew up to see you buying things and you are doing such a thing. So she's a very compassionate person. She loves. And she loved to give.
So to give you an example, an image I remember very remarkably in my mind growing up from when maybe I was 4, 5, 6, is that I would stand at the window and I would be looking straight at the other buildings and the different windows. And guess what I'll be doing? I will be imagining the people who lived in those homes. And I'll be asking if they are happy or sad. Do they have fathers and mothers? How many boys? How many girls? You know, are they joyful? And sometimes I will feel like I would feel like I was catching a sense of sadness about a home I was sort of looking at their window, and I would say to myself, maybe they're not happy in this home. Maybe they need something they don't have. And then I'll begin to pray that whatever their needs are, you know, God should be kind to them. And sometimes I could be crying all by myself.
I can notice that when she was growing up, right from childhood, she was a girl that I can say was precocious in the sense that she was developing more mature than her age. She was very inquisitive about things, right from childhood. She wants to know everything. And then she was full of wisdom and of grace, and also was very kind.
My parents were really, really affirming of each of us as children, and affirming of our specific and unique giftings and personalities. I think that every human being is wired to thrive in the soil of affirmation. And we have a responsibility as adults now, because so many people have had experiences that maybe don't align to affirmation and loving kindness. But we now have a responsibility to set ourselves up in communities that nurture, heal, and sort of affirm the uniqueness that God has put on our inside. And that's why we don't make decisions about friendships and, you know, relationships casually. But anyway, very, very affirming. My dad is firm, and so he will give you radical candor, give you feedback if things are out of line. My mom is a lot more tender and sweet, and she will commend you for what you do right. So that was a very remarkable thing. I'm still quite a sensitive person. I'm a vibes girl. If an atmosphere has rancor or strife or pretense, I'll pick it, you know, and it's why I've also been such a private person, you know, in the way I've organized my life. And I've just given access to people and communities and spaces that are truth-bearing and love-stirring.
Truly, when she was younger, she will carry this turning rod. She will use it as microphone. And she will continually talking. She will giving speeches. And a lot of times, like if we have someone around and they were saying there are people living with us, and I say, go away, go and sit down. I will say, leave her. This is my daughter. This amount, we give her dollars. Because she will go to places, she will speak. I just saw it in her, and I know I have to protect her to be able to go on to success. I will say, I remember when her dad was in the United States of America, and at the age of 4 then, I was writing letter. I said, come and tell me what you want to tell Daddy, I can write for you. She will say, I'm going to write it by myself. I was shocked. She picked up the paper and she wrote exactly what she wanted to write for Dad. And under it, I now mean it under it. I said, Dad, I minuted under it. I said, Dad, this is what she wanted to write. And she said I should not correct her. I hope you will be able to understand. So that's Debola. That was Debola when she was younger.
One thing I remember quite vividly about her was that she turned all my walls to writing tablets. She was defacing all my wall, and I was wondering, why are you writing on the wall? Until we started getting her jotters. And as young as she was then, she was putting down her thoughts, things she saw in school, about her teacher, about her colleagues, about her mates in school. She was putting everything down, both in writing and in drawing. She has skills in drawing. She drew very well then. I even thought she's going to grow up to be an artist. So, and then she was writing a lot of things about different people, about different things. So she was kind of precocious. Also, she was very focused. She knew from childhood what she wanted to be in life. And with clarity of mind, I can say that, clarity of mind. So I can say it's a kind of inheritance, a kind of legacy, something she met at home, seeing me reading all about. Even when I want to eat, they bring my food, I pull a novel, and I will tell her that I cannot eat this food without reading. She says, is that the right way to do things? I said, that is my own way. It's not that the food is not good, but I love to read a lot, and she was watching me. She was a child that watched a lot. She studied what you were doing. She was inquisitive. She was focused. She watched you, and then she copied good things that you were doing. So I think, and I believe all the background of people around her, even right to her secondary school days, when she joined the Literary and Debating Society, she started honing her skills in public speaking. Many a times our friends would call us in the 90s, and they would tell us, were you not on TV? Did you watch certain time that we saw your daughter debating? And I would say, no, we didn't even. I was away in church. They would say, she was so good that she beat the other guy silly. And part of what I've been already imbibing her is about the gender sensitiveness.
I didn't know that there was any such thing as maybe marginalization against the female gender until I got to university. Would you even believe that? It was when I got into my first year, they would say, oh, is it because we're females? Is it because we're girls or ladies? That's why they're giving these boys the privilege. And the whole thing was confusing to me because I grew up sometimes feeling bad for my brother. I thought he was disadvantaged. We were raised to, like, if you come home and you had maybe third position, my father is just going to ask, who was first and second? Were they girls? And if there was a boy there, he's not going to have it. He'll be like, do you know who a girl is? How did you guys do that? That a boy, is leading your class. So he did such a good work. He knew that there was such a patriarchal society in Africa, and he brainwashed his girls into really believing we had the advantage, that we had the power. And it's marked me so much, I can't unsee it. I can't be convinced out of it. I can't interact to myself from the point of view of a gender limitation. I can't. So I'm not revving myself up to say I'm a woman, I can do it. I just wake up and do it. Like, if you've got breath in your nostril and you've got a functional mind, go ahead and do big stuff. My father gave me that, and I'm forever grateful. And I saw him push my mom, give her the latitude to do her stuff. So honestly, I grew up in a no impossibility zone.
Yeah. My mom, her grandmother, she was my mom was a great mentor to her because she was a great evangelist. My mom, when she came to spend some time with us, they were growing up. She will pray with them 6 a.m. She will pray with them 9 in the morning during holiday. They will have prayer 3 p.m. They will have prayer 12 every 3 hours. And Deborah will not leave her. She will stood by her. Then the prayer life and the Bible study. Because my mom, I would say she was a wild Christian. And Deborah learned under her tutorial. Yes. She vomited some spiritual things in Christendom into her life.
So I already had that I was in the community, I was in the neighborhood, I would pray before going to bed, all that. But in 1995, I started to catch a hunger that was very different. And I remember clearly I would be on the upper bunk when it was light out, after light out, when we're meant to go to bed. I'll then have this woolly blanket. You remember this gray woolly blanket, with the stripes, exactly. I'll cover myself into it, and then I'll take my torchlight so that I won't disrupt the darkness in the room, and then I'll still be reading the Bible. I just had this irrepressible hunger that gripped me from the later part of 1995. I I remember, and I would be reading the Bible. You know, I will go into the day still thinking about what I read, having questions in my mind, like, what does that mean and what does that mean? And then, you know, in 1996, from about February of that year, there was a senior who took interest in me, Senior Eniola Desonya. And after the morning devotions in the hostel, she would just reach out to me, you know, sometimes pray with me before I go to class, ask how I'm doing. We continue this relationship until about October, when she said, "Are you born again?" And I said, "I'm not sure, but my parents are Christians." And she said, "If you're born again, you'll be sure. So I want to lead you to Christ." And she said, "Go on your knees and I will lead you to take the sinner's prayer." And I was like, "Huh? Am I a sinner?" I said, "I pray every night and I read the Bible." And she led me to pray that prayer. I received the Lord Jesus Christ that day into my heart. I was kneeling by the tap, muddy water, you know, and I was overcome with such a sense of joy and peace. I began to cry. You know, it was a very real experience. I started to really cry. She put her hands around me and prayed over me. And that was the beginning. And of course, she discipled me till I left that school in GSS 3. I was in GS 2 at this time, and she continued to disciple me. The moment I got born again, I came into such a fearlessness and such a fire that I started to preach all around the campus, all around the school. Everywhere I went, you know, I had these badges that said, "Are you born again? Have you accepted Jesus Christ?" And I'll put it on my uniform, I'll put it on my houseware, and I went everywhere preaching. That same year, 1994, 1996, I actually started Bake BC. Bake BC is the name of my friends and I, who were also born again. B for Bola, A for Awele, K for Kofo, E for Ebon, B for BC, I for Ibukun, S for Sheung, S for Shade, Y for Yemi. So we all came together and we started to pray for the souls of those who had not received Jesus in Government College, Ikorodu. And we would pray every day and then spread out to go preach the gospel. The thing is, today, there are still 2 of these ladies who are still part of our ministry. Imagine that. So it's been quite an interesting journey.
Oyus is the land of making. Oyu is the land of destiny. You know how you come on campus, there's something called Jambites Rush, both on the fellowship side and also on the scavenger side. There are club boys who are rushing the Jambites, and then there are also pastors who come into the campus and, you know, into the rooms and preach to you and try to get you over. And I thought, those things, I hope they still exist, because it's the principle of anakazo. Anakazo in Greek is taking it by force. And it's a model of missionary Christianity where you're like, I'm not letting you go. You have to be saved. Do you see? So RCCG had come, you know, had spoken to me. I was very excited about the fellowship. I had attended a fellowship day. I had a few sisters who were checking on me. Are you doing good? Maybe even giving me food. And then one evening, I was lying on my bed and these members of CAXA fellowship came over. I had absolutely no business or no interest, you know, in their conversation. I mean, they came in head tied, no earrings, you know. So I'm just like, I'm even in a fellowship, like, we have no business. So I'm reading. So they were facing the person opposite to me on the other bunk. And I was reading. I mean, I have a fellowship. I mean, I came to campus with earrings and trousers. I mean, you're not talking to me. I don't know you, don't know me. All of a sudden, I start to hear what one of the ladies is saying. One of the most passionate human beings I've ever met in my life. This thing was starting like, to the point where I dropped my book. I sit up. My heart is racing. She's talking about I got on campus as a born-again Christian, but she's talking about a Jesus I'd never heard of. She's talking about a fire I didn't have, a love I'd never experienced. She's talking about purpose, that God has a specific purpose, that we are not just a meaningless majority, but we're a specific with a purpose. What? My heart is racing. She's articulating so clearly. So she's slapping me out of my conditioning that she's not clad in jewelry, but she's smart. And she has a grip on the word. She's spilling scriptures, which, by the way, was my fascination as I was getting into school. I had spent a 1-year period after secondary school, before the admissions opened up, reading the Bible 3 times. And it was the thing I was known with. My father was always like, you are rewriting the Bible. I had all these big diaries that he gave me, and I'll be writing verses, chapters, Ephesians 1, trying to rewrite how much I remember. Do you get? So I'd write Ephesians 1, verse 1, and I will write it myself without looking at what I'd read. Ephesians 2, and I would then check the ones I didn't get. I will start again. You'll be like, you are rewriting the Bible. You're meant to read it or study it. What are you doing? So it marked my heart. But I found my senior. She was reeling verses. I said, what? So I dropped the book. I sit up. I'm now the one eavesdropping on their conversation. And I'm leaning in. And then she turns to me without notice, faces me and says, your heart is burning. What are you going to do about it? You are not the first who has heard the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, but what are you going to do about it? And if you are born again, it is not enough. There's a call on your life. You have to serve God's purpose. You've come to this campus. She said, this is the most important moment of your life on this campus, because the decisions you make here can take you this way or that way. I'm nodding. Then I start to cry. What's my business with you? Why am I crying? You know, my sister in the Lord, all I can tell you is I cried so much that I followed her to her room in alumni. You don't understand. She continued the gist, still spoke to me, told me she would come and pick me. I was agreeing. When do you finish your lecture? I will come and take you. Yes, I will come. Okay, you must be there. You wait for me. Yes, I will wait for you. That's how I found myself in Kaksa. And I was there for the first year, or maybe even to the middle of my second year. I won't say second year, because after year 1, we had 11 months strike. So when I say second year, I mean like part 2. And I still had my earrings. My hair was relaxed. I was carrying braids, doing my stuff. And nobody said anything to me. Nobody ever said, you shouldn't do this, it's a sin. And I thought that was fascinating. I was loved. They were teaching the word. We were giving to prayers. You will pray, you feel it in your bowels, like you will feel it in your entire body and then in your spirit. God knew what he was doing. He knew the nature of the calling, and he knew the rigor that I needed to be invested in. Forget the makeup. I still pray with my head between my thighs for hours. You see, stamina that was forged in the days of little beginnings. Do you see? So when I got to my second year and I started to rise as a leader, I feel like I came to the point where God had that conversation with me. And I remember it was at a retreat that we had at Ikpetu Modu. Wedding is going to distract your siblings in this house, and it's going to make the message I will give to you ineffective. Can you give it up for me? And I was like, I can, absolutely. Of course, I gave it to him and collected it back at least 5 times. Because the first day I took the earrings out, I was like, no, I can't do this. I didn't know how to go to campus, go to class, and yeah, you get teased. Go to class, people are like, did you lose your earring? What's happening? Then day 2, are you forgetting it? On and on. But he said, can you do that for me to be an effective minister of the gospel and to lead my people in this house? Yeah, I'll do that. So it may seem like a transition to an outsider, but it's not transition. It's seasons. And when that season was over, I picked up the part of me that I felt the Lord gave me liberty to return to, because he had done a complete work in that area within my spirit.
Then DDK used to wear a lot of skirts and dresses. I clearly remember the first time she wore like a sleeveless. It was after school. We were all shocked. We were shocked to see this DDK wearing a sleeveless dress, and her hair was like packed. And I was like, oh my God, can she actually be like this?
So seeing this lady that doesn't use earrings and is so beautiful, she would wear her long skirts, she would wear those packing shirt. That's what we called them in those days. And they were long-sleeved, so everywhere is covered. But you can still see that, fine girl, Lode.
So she told us a story. She said she went to boys' hostel. Those boys are notorious. And they'll stay upstairs, like they'll be up, and they'll be walking down, and they'll just be saying all sorts of hilarious things. So DDK said she was walking through, and they're shouting, hips so, hips so, hips so. Oh, oh. And she obviously walked. Of course, she was embarrassed, she walked, and then she came to tell us, like, can you imagine these boys were shouting hips so, hips so, hips so? In my heart, I'm like, that's good. What should it, if it's not hips? Do you want them to be abusing you? Because me, I didn't have hips at the time. I'm like, my sister, take your hips, take your flowers. Right? So I thought that was interesting, and that was one of the things that drew me to her. Or yeah, that was one of the things that drew me to her, because I used to just so beautiful and cute at that time, you see. And so I think that was that's one thing that she has kept, and that she should still keep for us for a very long time. So we love that.
CACSA was a very conservative, fellowship, as you would imagine. She was literally there, but she was a rebel in that sense in the fellowship. So her relationship really transcended beyond maybe the typical circle that you would expect her to hang around, particularly when it comes to spiritual relationships.
Everything that he needed to forge, I couldn't have been a different fellowship than CACSA. That was where I was supposed to be. That was where intercession was shaped. That was where humility was shaped. Do you see? So in my marriage, for example, there's a degree of submission and tenderness that is so different from the firebrand DDK. God forged those things when I wasn't even in a relationship. But it was modeled. It was taught. It was the cool. Submission was cool. Humility was cool. So I'm in a space where if he ever has a demand of me, and by the way, he's made those demands. There are things I could do that I don't do because I'm a minister of the gospel. There's a place I could take my makeup game that I don't. The most pungent, unforgettable memory that I have about Mainbow would be December 2001. We had finished the Sisters' Weekend in my fellowship, CACSA, and the theme of that conference was Arise, Purpose is Calling. And there was a woman of God who had come to teach. She had taught that day very calmly, but there was so much fire that was burning in my soul. And when the meeting ended, maybe about 9:30, I came over from Covered Pavilion to Mainbow. And I was there till maybe about 2-3 a.m. in the morning. I found myself crying. And that was the first time I found myself praying certain kind of prayers. God, if there's anything you want to do in my generation, don't do it without me. Use me for your glory. Make my heart burn for you. Take out of me what doesn't belong to you. I want to know you more. And I remember that I was crying and saying, I want to know you more for so long. And I could almost touch that physical fire that I felt was so aflame in my heart. I'd never felt that way before. I prayed prayers that I didn't have any natural understanding for. And that was definitely the beginning of what I would say is the greatest love story of my life between Jesus and I. I received the call to ministry in year 2003. And it was a time when my father in the Lord, Apostle Segun Ombaje, had come to the university. He had graduated, and then he came back to school, and he reached out in search for 3 of us. And he said the Lord had told him to come into campus and actually ordain us for ministry. My room used to be packed consistently with people waiting to be counseled into the mornings, into 1 and 2 a.m. No kidding. Sometimes they'll be lying on my bed and lying on a friend's bed and just sitting around waiting for their turn to be counseled. And after a while, we had to shift from the room and, we started to use places, in the sports center. But people started to really come up to me in 2003 with questions that I felt like God had equipped me to answer. So I'll sit with them. I was mentoring a lot of students. And I look back and I'm just like, what was I saying though? You know, a lot of sisters who were also looking up to Sister Bola Adeoye and what God would say through her to them. So the burden kept growing that year. Like, how about we had a community of young Christian ladies who could access the word, you see, who could consistently hear the word and just be empowered to live right and to make holy decisions while on campus and not get into problematic relationships or, you know, sexual situations and all of that. By 2004, I felt emboldened that it was the right time to start what was then called God's Great Girls Network. The model was Vision 9, Impact 9 and Vision 90. So Impact 9 was Bola Adeoye and 8 other ladies who were my friends. And we started to pray together that year, saying that we're going to become a formidable force of 9 visionary leaders who will then reach and impact 10 others. And that we will start off with 90 ladies in God's Great Girls Network. And that's exactly what happened. And so we started to pray, we started to evangelize and disciple. And I didn't even know it was discipleship at the time. But as we got into the process and they will keep asking, so what do I say to that person when I meet with them? I began to think about a resource that could standardize that process. And that's how I wrote to John Maxwell's organization to say, hey, I'm a young lady on campus and this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to raise leaders, you know, who love the Lord and who go into campus and make a difference for him. And they sent us their discipleship manual. So I distributed that to all the other ladies, the leaders, and we started to use that. I will teach them once a week and they will go on to teach their 10 disciples. And then we went ahead to host a conference after we had been on for a while. So effectively, it's 20 years, you know, since God's Great Girls Network officially started, even though it's 21 years in May since I got that call to ministry.
I remember that when we go there, I would give her money that was substantial then, sometimes 10,000, 20,000 naira. And you say like, wow, Daddy, this is so much. How can I finish this? But lo and behold, if you go back in another 1 month, the money is exhausted. And I have to call her, what are you using money for? It was then that she confessed to me that she had a group of ladies that she's mentoring, she's bringing up. I think it was 100 or 200 level then. And then I said, you could have informed me about this. And I could have known what to do in supporting your ministry as a then. They were called GGGs, God's Great Girls.
Now, I was a teenager, but I had spent weeks fasting to have this conversation with my dad. I wasn't eating, I was praying, and that the heart of the king is in the hands of the Lord, you know? And they had come to visit because they had an event. Somewhere in Osun State came over. And as I spoke to him, my father stepped back and he leaned toward the car. I can't forget that day. He looked up for a long time and he said, Jesus gave you to us. Jesus can do what he wants with you. He said, I'll give you 10,000 naira. Go and start the God's Great Girls, anything you want to do, but just make sure that you still focus on your academics. I can never forget that moment because it felt like my Heavenly Father spoke through my biological father.
And I became the only man in that group. And I became the great financier because I have to increase whatever I was giving her then. And I remember so many of them. Ronke, Mofade, yeah, what is the name of that lady in the US now? No. So, so many of them. And I knew each and every one of them. Elemide. And I recognize each and every one of them every time we go to Ife because we were monitoring her. She was growing up in her late teens. and we knew a lot of issues that can arise in the university. So I was mentoring her, I was monitoring her, I became her first boyfriend, and I was watching over her against all the vultures around, all these vultures, and I was just... So we move, we drive, we have our weekends going to Ife. So we knew quite all right from the beginning that there's a God-given assignment, that the main focus is about women. And I always tease her at the time, that, look, what is to do with women? You don't want to have anything to do with men? He said there are different roles assigned to her. When the time for a man comes, she will know, God will speak to her. But presently, as at that time, she's all about women. And she will continue talking to them, releasing word of faith, word of prayer into their lives. As long as she was being called mama, even when she was about 19. And I was saying it means that at my age then, in my 40s, I become a grandpapa, if you're a mama to women. So for you to be able to know, she had a God-given role, an assignment that God's grace made her to be able to fulfill. She was cooking food for them, taking to Ife, encouraging them.
Yeah, truly I was encouraging them. I will cook food. We will go to Ife to go and give them. Because I don't know. I have a spirit that makes me to believe in what she was doing. Yes, in the campus. And when I make food, get food ready that I want to go, Daddy, will be my uncle down to go and see them. In fact, many a times she will have a program outside Ife. She will say, I'm going to Ibadan for this. Me and her dad will go there to go and listen and see. We always backing her up.
So yeah, that's how God's Great Girls Network started. Long before I left campus, I had handed over to a next generation of leaders and kept mentoring them. And we continued, maybe for another 5 years till God's Great Girls Network then ultimately evolved into what was initially called Deborah Divas, moved on to Deborah Company, moved on to Deborah Initiative for Women. And we were Deborah Initiative for Women for many years. So 2020, we became Kingdom Women Global Alliance, and then on to Kingdom Leaders Global Alliance, because we now effectively serve men of God as well. I was a part-time student and a full-time minister of the gospel. I will explain it in context. I wasn't a mediocre student. I was top of my class consistently, but I had a very different approach to my academics. I love that what the Lord has forged within my spirit is not only spirituality in the context of like scriptures, preaching the gospel, worship, the love for prayer, the love for the word, but also a spirituality that impacts on an excellent mind. But the code that I had was I never missed lectures as a student. I never missed lectures. And I took copious notes. You see, I would write to the point of even the jokes the lecturer was making. I'll be making side notes that, this thing could come out in the exam because it's highlighting it a lot. And then right after class, if we had a lacuna between a lecture and the next, I'll stay back, not gisting and playing or roaming around buying buns and donuts. I'll stay in class and I'll read that day's note. It made a significant difference. So I had such almost a magnetic memory where I won't forget. If I see a question in the exam, I'll remember what the lecturer was wearing. Because I read it right after again and again, and I took notes, even to the jokes he was making. And then the Holy Spirit will always help me. I didn't know at that time that I was playing to a prophetic gift, but he'll tell me what will come out in the exam. By my fourth year, with either the second or third the second semester for my third year, I think from that time, people started to notice and will ask me, what's going to come out? and I'll say, this is what I'm sensing. And many times it will be so. So he'll tell me what to focus on because he knew I had a lesser window of time to study. And then whatever he tells me to read is what I'll just read. Do you see? Then I answered questions in class and I asked questions in class. What that did was lecturers bought into me and bought into my personality to the irritation of my colleagues. Because when the lecturer's like, okay, let's round up, I'll just be like, I have a contemplation. So it got to a point where lecturers would be like, look, you've earned your A. Even if you don't write this exam, I will give you an A. Do you see? So they watched out for me. Yeah, so I was strategic as an academic in school. I was also very spiritual. I honed my leadership gifts. I was confident. I was awarded most charismatic female in the department. So maybe it says something about how I was showing up as a student.
She's always been very smart. A few things she told me, even with respect to handling academics and the expectation as well of her faculty about her and her future, and how she wasn't, that future didn't fit into her future. They had a future for her, and she knew. But she knew that, no, I'm not going down this line. But, you know, just the ability to really impress her faculty as well on campus. They thought she was just going to come into the academia, you know, go and write all those estate management exams and become a professional. And they were sort of nursing her, as it were, in that direction. But she just knew that this is just a degree.
In the middle of her course, there was a kind of ASU strike that was so rampant then. I think that was the time they were home for about a year. And I was making plans to remove her from OAU and take her to the US. She said no. I didn't know it was because of those she was mentoring, the GGGs and the rest of them. And she started pleading. She went on her knees, saying, Daddy, this thing will soon be over. We heard from the grapevine that within some few more months or weeks, they will be recalled back to school. And she started praying about it. So she went back. I think it was at 300 level then. She said I should allow her to just finish the course in Ife. And thereafter, I can take her anywhere I want to take her to.
So I've always known that it was something God wanted to do with me, and I'm grateful for that knowledge. And I think young people should have it. And it's not a knowledge you come upon because you're special. I don't say it from the point of view of, oh, there's something extraordinary about me and I always knew. No, everybody is meant to live with the recognition that God's choice is on me. God's preference is on me. There's a way you can look at my life. And when I say, I always discern that God's choice was upon me, you look at my life today and then you say, God's hands are on her. The thing is, discerning that God's hands was upon me is what produced the path to the life. I don't know if you see the difference. I'm not saying I'm special and I discern that I was special. I'm saying I reckoned that it was something God wanted to do with me, as He wants to do with every man. And that recognition, which is called destiny consciousness, took me on a path that allowed God's purpose to blossom. Everybody has that. Everybody has God's hands, God's choice over them, but not everyone has a consciousness of God's choice. Because my confidence, my conviction, my fire, my energy, my strengths have always been strong. If I encountered or submitted myself to critics, those who don't believe in me or those who said your own is too much, it would have changed the trajectory of my journey. Do you understand this? That's what some young people are facing. It's called strength shaming, where your strong is wrong, where your gifts are despised, and they're like, what is it? Take it easy. So refuse to maintain alliance with those who quench your fire. They're firefighters. Find your fire lighters.
So she sent me a text message one day, an iMessage, and the messages we send each other on, iMessage are interesting. And it was a long message, and then she ends it by saying, this is me inviting you to like, let's build a relationship, was what she said in that text. I've never forgotten. It was in 2019. And she's like, let's build a relationship. Let's, reach out if you have questions. Let's build something. And in my adult years, I think that was probably the first someone intentionally opening a door and saying, I think there's something here. Let's see where this goes. But even for me, it was awkward. I'm like, how do you build relationship with, is it, you know what I mean? It just seems a bit like, what does that mean though? How do you build relationship with somebody? Why are we making these things so formal? Why can't we just be going with the flow? But DDK is not a going with the flow person, right? She's very intentional with everything. So I thought, okay, so occasionally maybe I'll send her one iMessage here, because remember, I'm thinking this woman is very busy. Let me not overstep. Let me not. But I think it was easy for me to build something with her because she opened her heart to me. And she modeled that for me to be able to open my own heart to her as well. And I can't tell you the exact moment when she moved from being a coach to being a sister, but that transition happened. And I think a few things for me. First, it was because it was in my adult years. A lot of my friendships, have been like 10 years, 12 years, 20-something years, right? Those are the people I have in my life. So I didn't necessarily consciously choose them initially, even though I consciously decided to continue that relationship with them. DDK is one of my adult relationships that I've not known DDK long in terms of length. Look at the year I'm calling, just 2019. It's just here. But in terms of depth.
Wow. DDK, DDK has been to all my houses. When I say every house I've ever lived. I'm going to try. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So the question was how she's come through for me. Yes. Yeah. I grew up in Ebutimeta. Yeah. And this was the house I lived in for about 20-something years. And DDK has been to that house before. She's been to the house I grew up in, DC. And I think there are about very few friends that I have now that have been to that house. Then I got married and I moved to Shongotedu. You know, when you're going to Lekki, so people say I live in Lekki. When you get to Lekki and you say, okay, I'm in Lekki now, where's your house? They'll say, still be coming, like still be coming. They'll say, when you get to that roundabout, turn left, then turn right, then turn. That was the kind of house I used to stay. Like you get to Aja and then like, still be coming, still turn. And DDK came all the way. I was so happy this day. Like I went to blend beans. I went to make Memoir for her because she loves Memoir. I didn't have the whole blender thing, so I went to blend it. DDK waited till I went to blend it, till I came back to cook it. And it took time. I didn't even know what it tasted like because I was just in a hurry trying to make sure that she doesn't spend too much time because she spent a lot of time coming and she's going to spend a lot of time going. And she stayed, she came, and I have moved again and she has still come. Like, sometimes I feel like I don't deserve her because she's just who she is, do you see? And that just means something to me, like a friend that keeps looking for you and keeps finding you. Yeah.
So at KGA, she's my president. I'm a director in KGA. She's my prophet. And so there's that, where we have that dynamic of we're doing the Lord's work and we get it done. And then we have this beautiful friendship as well, where she's just DDK, she's just Deborah, and I'm just Bukola, and we're just two sisters, two friends, just choosing to sit on the floor of the living room today and eat from, and gist and catch up. So we've had, and I think that's one of the great things that have happened with us, is that we've had seasons when life was not so busy, and we've been able to hone in on that friendship, such that when life is busy now, and she's here today, I'm here tomorrow, and we're barely in town, So how are you even going to see? So when you come to those seasons, because of the seasons of intimacy, friendships, and codependency sort of that has been built, it's easier to just say, okay, fine, we've not seen in a month, we've not seen for multiple weeks, but if we need to catch up, we catch up. And she knows, and I know, that if I really, really need to see her, or vice versa, it's just a call away. But of course, also knowing that you are on a lane that is not usual. Like, it's busy. So it's not that kind of friendship or relationship where you're like, oh, this person has not asked after me. Or, oh, we don't do that here. Let's pursue purpose. Let's do the Lord's work. But also, let's hang out. Because we haven't seen in a while. Let's go have, a smoothie together.
So I'm thankful for Apostle Segun Obaje, Pastor Funke Obaje. I'm thankful for Pastor Dotun and Vincent Arifalo. I'm thankful for Desola Alade Suru, Diola Babatunde, Ronke Ogundipe. And I could go on and on and on. I'm grateful for the community of saints who believed in the vision God gave me and became a part of the work at God's Great Girls Network back then. I'm grateful for Mrs. Bisola Longe, who's been in my life for 20 whole years. Apostle Segun Obaje, started to disciple me when I was 17. That's 23 years of labor in the gospel and in love. Do you see? I'm grateful for Albert Afolabi, who is still my go-to guy, my Mr. Fix-It. Hey, what do you think? I'm grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for the things God forged in him that has made him the man that he is to me and to our children. Do you see this? So you don't play an emotional game when it comes to your relationships. You don't play a sentimental game.
I have spent the last 2 decades being extremely intentional about life on purpose, life by design. And when I was 20, I met a woman who was 40. When I was 20 years old, in year 2004, I met Bisola Longe. She had come to Obafemi Awolowo University to, as a guest minister to speak at a conference, and my heart really burned. It was so real, it was authentic, it was powerful. I took copious notes, and I just felt such a great sense of connection with her. So I reached out to another lady called Tola Badmus, who I remember her fellowship had brought Bisola Longe. And I said, Tola, how do I connect with Bisola Longe? How do I, reach out to her? And she said, I'm going to be in Lagos to see her. So I wrote a letter. I gave it to her to give Bisola Longe in Lagos. And she got back to school and said, hey, she would really love to meet you, and gave me her office address at Sanusi Fafunwa in Victoria Island, Lagos. That was the first time I was hearing about that street. So when I was on holidays, I went over to see her, and it was just an instant connection. An instant connection. I was so inspired. I walked into her office. She was actively in human resources, talked to me about the work she was doing. I felt like that was going to be my career path. I was just so inspired by her. And that was the beginning of a 20-year relationship that has transformed my life most remarkably. When I graduated from the university, I started to work with her. She had then moved to Adebayo Doherty in Lekki Phase 1. And I worked in an organization for a number of years. She's continued to mentor me. But the remarkable thing is she became, at that time, when I met her at 20, she became the model of who a woman could aspire to become. She was a mix of too many things. Her motherhood was phenomenal. Her quest for personal development was impressive. Her body was great. She was very beautiful. She loved the Lord. She was overseeing her own human capital practice that was serving some of the biggest multinationals in the country at the time. She had it together. She was a force of nature. And she continued from the moment she met me to really say that There was something exceptional about me. I feel like everyone needs that kind of voice in their lives. Someone who spotlights your greatness long before you even fully know who you are. So she would continue to say, you're really different. You're a powerful person. You know, your mind is beautiful. I love your emotional intelligence. You're smart. And those words have shaped my perception of myself. And it was the fantastic layer that she put on the work my parents had done, you know, sort of parenting me in that positive, strength-based, you know, and very affirming way.
At the heart of who DDK is, she's a lover girl. That's, DDK is the lover and lover girl. The girl can love. She can love. Whether it's her husband, whether it's her kids, whether it's her friends, the girl is a lover girl. Okay, the woman. Let me not, because, you know, she's 40 now, so she's officially a woman. I'm still a girl. Anyway, because my personality type, I'm an observer. There was a meeting I was streaming. I don't think I was present in that meeting. I was streaming the meeting, and she was, you know, talking. She was preaching or something, and then PDK comes in, and she had done this whole thing that she does from stage that makes him so uncomfortable, and she doesn't care, and she, you know, she had really gone on and on, and that's fine. People do that all the time. But I watched. She came down from the stage eventually, and she sits down beside, and the camera's, you know, looking at everything, and I was just observing two of them. It was like I was seeing. You know, when you're in university and you're dating someone in university, you know how you guys, two of you are just like shaking your... I'm like, this woman, I actually took a picture of, I paused it, took a picture and I was like, is this what the woman of God is doing in this meeting? Like, what is this? She couldn't even sit still. And it's not pretense. Genuinely. And I think it's that thing of, her heart is in everything that she does.
Being able to be that woman outside and still being able to be a lover inside, it is exemplary. Do you see? So much so that it's almost like she's setting a new standard, like this is how it should be. Because we don't have examples like that of many women doing things like that. It's either they are, you know, they are boss babes and they are strong, and we can't even get a glimpse of what their house or homes or marriages look like. But we've got a glimpse of, I have a glimpse of what it looks like. And DDK is, she's the lover, and she keeps helping us see that you cannot even achieve that. You can't even be all of that if you're not the submissive wife in the home. So she brings that lover side in her marriage. She shows that lover side, and I see how she honors her husband. I see that, and that is so exemplary.
Even while being a core ministry person and making a difference in Africa's, you know, industrial landscape, I was not going to be lopsided with my family. I knew that at the core, I'm a homemaker. And that's still what I've enjoyed the most. In the midst of everything God has blessed me with the privilege to do, I enjoy being my husband's wife. I really enjoy being my children's mother. I enjoy having my eyes on my home and partnering with God when it comes to taking care of the family.
My dearly beloved, darling husband was also in OAU. We met on campus. We didn't start to court on campus, but we met on campus.
When she came and said, Mom, I have gotten someone that is on me and wants to marry me, as a mother, the first thing that came to my mind is to praise God. Yes, because I know that is the role of being increased, that I'm going to increase. So I was happy. And later, that night, he went to Dad again to go and tell his dad that Daddy, someone, her dad, that somebody is talking to me.
You mean about the husband, Ayodeji? First thing is this guy is taking away my girlfriend on a lighter mood.
And I was just really at a time in my life where I was very focused on just my career and, building myself and investing in myself and all of that. I wasn't contemplating marriage. I wasn't contemplating dating any lady. I was just really focused on my career. And I remember I just went to church that Sunday morning, and it was right after service was closing that Sunday. And as we prayed just to close service, just from the blues, she literally just came into my mind, right? And I started to, it was as though I was seeing a vision. It was really a vision of the woman I had prayed about, back on campus. And it was literally the Holy Spirit telling me, this is the woman you've prayed about. This is the prototype of what, you've prayed about. And I said, okay. And so by that time, she had received me as a husband. So I left church, and church was very close to where I was staying there in Yaba. It was more of a church where I was marking time until I found my feet, which was later then the baptizing church. So right on my way back to my house, I gave her a call, and called her literally from the blues, and asked whether we could have a date the following Saturday. Prior to then, we had incidentally met in public transport, in Lagos. She was going to her pastor's house. I was going to a friend's house who was an older friend who was a mentor. I was going to see him. It was a weekend, and I think I was going to meet him in his office at the time. So we kind of connected right there. Also, in the public transport, I probably paid her fare. I can't remember. And then, we parted ways. And, from then, just every now and then, some exchange every now and then. But on this particular day, I called her, and we went on our first date at the Ozone Cinema in Yaba. Yeah, and that was how slowly we started to, talk a lot more and visit. And, eventually, on one of those evenings, I asked her if she would like to spend the rest of her life with me and share my dreams. And she agreed. She was, we're both in love. But she was very giddy that evening. I was just like, calm down. All right. And that was how the relationship, started. And and that was the beginning of, as it were, my relationship with her father as well, before I even met him.
I just saw somebody that I believe have been sent to Adibola as a husband, as a friend, and as a lover, a complete gentleman. Even on our first meeting, before I ask questions, Spirit of God have ministered to me. This is the man assigned to your daughter as husband. And they're going to live peacefully to rightful old age. So nothing more for me to add than for me to continue praying for them. And all has been going on well.
We love to share jokes. We love to laugh a lot. So we love that part of ourselves. And I think I'm grateful to her dad, for injecting that bit of humor that he had, into her. She's a very humorous person, and I think we strike out really well in that direction. I can be interestingly humorous as well, so we laugh a lot, and we share a lot of jokes. I love the friendship, I love the friendship, the times that we spend together, hang out together. They're very precious times, very precious moments. And she's, like I described earlier, she's an epitome of a very balanced woman. She brought a lot into my life. And even from the time before we got married, while we were dating, it became quite obvious to me that, God does love me. So it's almost like I tell her, I'm like, you're sort of a remarkable evidence that God has got my back.
I have a strong support system. I think I'm good at negotiating with my husband for how I want to be helped and what I'm working on and how we can build and partner and do stuff together. So I'm not trying to have it all. I'm just trying to live fully and lean into everything God has for me and has called me to do.
The seed of everything that you see today, you could see all those things right there on campus. So literally, it's the same person that you're seeing, but the seed is growing and has grown into, a tree, big. In fact, that was one of those things I think I said to her in those early days of marriage. I said, I kind of see you like a tree, blossoming with several branches and then several birds, as it were, nesting in your branches. And that's literally what's happening today. So it's the same person, it's the same fabric, the same visionary.
DDK is greatly graced by God as a polymath and multi-dimensional vessel of transformation who is committed to her life's work of unlocking the profound potential of individuals, institutions, and industries, especially on the African continent. She distilled her calling from God into a 5-part transformation mandate across personal, social, spiritual, professional, and visionary transformation. In serving these 5 dimensions of the transformation mandate, she runs Metamorphosis HQ, a multi-subsidiary conglomerate which houses Immerse Coaching Company, Future Forward Female Movement, Ideation Hub Africa, Visionary Compass, Kingdom Leaders Global Alliance, Firebrand, and her recently launched lifestyle brand, Ayinke Regal. Over the last decade across her organizations, DDK leads a vibrant 150,000 plus community of change makers and visionaries who live in more than 100 countries in the world. An author of 25 books till date, her ministry and Bible school have reached more than 600,000 believers in the last 13 years across 4 continents, providing scriptural guidance, spiritual discipleship, leadership development, and mission support to the saints. She is lovingly regarded as an influential Christian leader whose strong prophetic and apostolic dimensions provide a navigational guide for stewarding the king and priest offices effectively in this generation. DDK is a best-selling author, highly sought-after keynote speaker, public policy advisor for African governments, transformational coach for visionary leaders, and sits on boards of organizations. She has been severally awarded for her outstanding leadership impact, with her transformational work featured on TV, international news, and media. Recently, DDK welcomed U.S. Secretary of State to Nigeria at the opening of the American Corner.
At the core of who I am, I believe that I carry a very strong equipping anointing. I believe that I'm a teacher and a catalyst, and I'm almost like a bit of an elderly soul in a young woman's body. So a lot of the expressions I have are deeply connected to being able to transfer wisdom that helps people to really release their potential and live at their highest. I think that is a most central definition I can offer about myself.
DDK is phenomenal,
Audacious, possibility,
The force, my catalyst,
enigma,
powerful force,
she will be an exclamation mark. And not just because she writes with a lot of exclamations, but because she literally is living life out loud.
When I think of DDK, I think of a woman full of love, full of life, full of humor.
DDK has such a wonderful heart. She's so loving.
DDK is amazing. There's this warmth, this aura around her. There's just the way she draws you in, you know, that motherly care, love and affection. We are the ones who are blessed because you were born.
Sometimes I imagine her as a Jesus of our time.
She embodies the life of Christ, embodies the heart of Christ, and embodies the love of Christ.
My journey has actually been just an evolution in obedience, season after season. If He puts a thing in my heart, it's just like the vision is opening up and it's peeling open layer after layer and after layer. And God is raising an army, you know, who continue to come over to partner, to build with us.
What most people don't know is that DDK can work. DDK works hard. Like, she's a hard worker. And many times people see the results. They see, I mean, how do you not be a hard worker if you write 25 books? Like, you have to work hard. I've seen her heavily pregnant and sit at a table and say, I need to write 2 chapters. I need to write 3 chapters. And she will sit at a dining table and continue to just punch out, punch out, punch out. And she has a bowl of fruits beside her. And she's writing, and she's writing. So she's not someone that, oh, if I feel like I work, oh, I'm not in a good mood, I won't work. Her life is like, she's figured it out in terms of just saying, this is what I need to achieve. And regardless of what I'm feeling at the time, or forget the fact that I'm carrying a child, I'm going to just get it done.
I must mention that she's a very secure leader. Very secure leader. She's someone who thrives in seeing order fly higher. And she would rally so much support around that person. I would say it's a two-pronged approach. She's people-centric, yet she balances it very well with that assertiveness. DDK is not afraid to call you out on your nonsense. And we love it. That's one of the things we love about her, because she's able to call out anything she sees that is misaligned in your life.
Now, DDK has chilled. When we first started working with her in different things, she can wake up today and be like, guys, she'll have vision casting meetings. Oh my goodness, those meetings are good. She'll book us for like 2 hours. She'll give us this vision. You've seen it. You've seen the end. You've seen where you're going. We're like, let's do it. What's the timeline? I actually wanted to launch it by Friday, and this like Wednesday evening. You now be like, what's good? She'll be like, we can do it. And she genuinely believes you can do it too. Not as if anything. And you're just thinking, my goodness. But I think over time too, she has also learned to modulate her strength, because it's a strength. Execution is actually at the core of DDK's strengths. She's an executioner. Let's be going. So as a leader, number one, she's about the results. Number two, DDK is about excellence in every area of the things that she does. And I'm not saying perfection, right? Because let me use Immerse now, actually. I've been with Immerse from when it started the way it is now. So from cycle 1, I've been with Immerse. And I've seen how each cycle, she's very big about taking the feedback that people give and saying, how can we become better? How can we grow? I'm never, shy of giving feedback to DDK, because I know it will not be taken the wrong way or it will not be misconstrued. Do you see? So she's very big about that, excellence. And if people have paid for a service, actually take that back. It's not just if people have paid for a service, because even her free things, the level of work that goes into, the free things that she gives out and all the places that she is. So that thing of excellence is very big for her as a leader. The third thing I would say is integrity. as a leader, right? And in terms of what she also expects from those that she leads. What she says, she means, right? There's no guessing how, how is she feeling? Is she pleased? Is she not pleased? There's just that integrity in her words, integrity in her communication, integrity in her emotions, which is good.
How did I figure out the principles to live by and the paradigms to shape how I've organized my own life as a woman? Three things. The first is that actually life is for the living. It's our generation that has really allowed ourselves to be pressured by the requirement for mentorship, to be honest. We're exaggerating our requirement for mentorship. Life is for the living. Life is like a treasure hunt. You have to wake up in the morning and see if something is hurting, if something is pinching, if you're limping somewhere. And if you're limping somewhere, you don't put on makeup and pretend on social media and do an IG live for how never to limp in life. When you're right there limping, you look into why you're limping. You're actually like, this thing is hurting. Why do I feel this way? When did I start to feel this way? Was it something someone said? And then you take it to the Lord. So in fact, the journey of spirituality is often connected to using the wisdom of God to unravel the mysteries of life. This thing hurts. So you go to scriptures, they're like, has any woman been in a place where she was trying to move her vision forward, but she felt that, her family was hindering her? And you're reading, life is for living. Life is for learning. So I'm a student of life. And I don't just mean a student of life. I mean a student of my life. My life teaches me. If something was working and is not working anymore, honestly, nothing is cast in stone. I'm going to go back and be like, this thing is off, And guess what? It's been a lonely journey. And you don't have to be afraid of lonely. It's been a lonely journey sometimes when you're trying to find your way. Right now, by the way, I should say, I'm in the midst of big life decisions. And to be honest, they are not decisions I can make speaking to a mentor about them. Yeah, that's the sense I get. They're decisions that I will make leaning into what God will show me as I navigate this phase of my life quietly. There are books I could read and I will do so. But I feel like people call a conference call on their lives too often, and they really miss what their life is trying to say to them. So the first thing there for me is life is for the living. And I learned just observing my own journey. And if something doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. Too many people invalidate their own emotions. Too many women do that. They're always second guessing themselves. Oh, am I being suspicious? Or am I being too sensitive? Am I being oversensitive? Well, if I'm oversensitive, I'm oversensitive. This thing is off. This thing feels wrong. And you sit into it and say, what is going on? And you start to associate meaning to the events and seasons in your life. You start to hit your own jackpot. Okay, this one is right. This is how I organize it. I feel like whenever I travel, if this and this is not in place, it disrupts my mind. So I will put this in place. I feel like when I go to church, if I come in late and so and so and so, and I sit in this kind of place, I don't feel like I connect well. So, that's how we build a life because it's your life, you're living it. You have to want to live in it as against wanting to run from it, you see. So that's the first for me. The second, and within that first, allow me to mention 3 subs if you want to be a student of your life. Number 1, you have to run appraisals, regular appraisals. And that's why I create journals. I create self-introspective resources to help people ask questions about their lives. You have to appraise your life. You have to journal regularly. You have to write and think. And then you have to meditate. Many people read the Bible, but they don't meditate. And that's why there are people who are not born again, but who enjoy the universal principles of meditation and get results from them more than believers. Meditation is just such a separate and very powerful thing that helps you unblock answers from the belly of your spirit. So that's on that first part. The second activity or lifestyle that makes me find the wisdom to organize my life the way that I do is really around reading. You know, God has led me to some remarkable resources. I have interacted with breathtaking wisdom that you read it and you're like, this is from God. So maybe I should, let me classify it into a bigger bucket of teachers. Teachers. I believe that teachers, the concept of teachers is supremely powerful, and we've not had our eyes on it a lot like we've had our eyes on the concept of mentors. Many of us want to have direct relationships with people who have gone ahead of us, but sometimes all you need is a teacher whose message you can listen to, whose book you can read, whose course you can access, and you may never need to meet them in life, but you can access the wisdom that changed their own life. So I've had teachers. I do have teachers. Every time I listen to Dr. Cindy Train or read her book, I feel seen. I feel seen. I'm just like, oh my God, this is me. This is what I need to hear. And every time I put it to practice, I get great results, right? And then the third is actually models, starting even from my own mother. I draw lessons from how she lived her life. You know, because I said to myself, to be honest, with every sense of humility, by God's grace, I'm turning out well by the grace of God. So I would say to myself, what did my mother put into the journey that led me on the path that is moving me forward this way? And I ask her questions a lot. I remember my childhood a lot. And I use it to frame certain answers, not only for my parenting, but for my marriage. My mom is the sweetest, kindest, most tender, humble, submissive, near perfect wife and mother that exists. So I'll be like, well, she's my mom. I can take some of that, you know. So models, I've got mothers, I've got spiritual leaders, I've got mentors, I've got forerunners, I've got big sisters, aunties, you know, pastors, and I always draw insights from just observing their journey and their lives. Those things have definitely helped. I am at heart a rebel against the herd mentality. It just upsets me. So why am I adding that? Anybody that wants to frame a life monogram, an archetype, an original design that suits you, suits your calling, and allows you fulfill your purpose without distraction, you have to be a rebel against social stereotypes. Social stereotypes stand against purpose prototypes. So you just have to be upset enough by what everybody is doing and the noise for you to hear the voice. But the principles that have undergirded the experiences I've had in my life and how I've still been able to attain the levels of accomplishment and success God has blessed me with will be, number one, what I have shared about customized grace. That's the first. The second is high supply, high demand. High supply, high demand. High demand life, 100%, but there's great supply. There's a great supply of the Spirit. There's a great supply of great inspiration. There's a great supply of speed. There's a great supply of people. I can't complain. I've been really blessed. And then the third is high performance, high recovery. High performance, high recovery. Many people wait till they burn out to then take a vacation to a country they don't enjoy, spending money they don't feel like they really have, coming back stressed, more stressed than when they left. My own philosophy and goal has been to build a life I don't need to take a vacation from. Does it mean we don't go on vacations? We do. But we're not going on vacation to tension anyone or to escape our reality. We're going on vacation to enrich our life's experience, open the windows of the world to our children, and to interact with other cultures. Do you see this? So high performance, high recovery. I don't wait to be burnt out to go on vacation. Every single Monday for the last maybe 5 years or more, I have devoted my Mondays as Sabbath because I'm ministering on weekends or coaching. So Mondays, when the world is running out to start their week, I'm stepping back and resting in God and enjoying my life. And that investment has kept me fresh for many years. The second is every month, I will often take myself away. And I understand that not every woman has that kind of luxury, but I do, and I'm grateful for it. Every month or once in 2 months, I'll take myself away to a hotel, retreating, catching my breath, resting again. And then there are quarters in a year that are busy, and I know that. And then there are quarters where I step back, I reduce the invitations, I spend more time with family, and I recover. So I have a high demand life, but I have a high supply life. I can't complain. There are things that I'm graced to do that maybe others aren't. I can't look at their journey and feel like, oh my God, these people have all this time, And in the past, I'll make a joke with my husband and I'll say, oh gosh, I'm looking forward to the time when I work just 3 months a year and I just lounge 9 months a year. And you'd be like, you fall sick. You'd actually fall sick if you had nothing to do and you were just watching TV and being a couch potato. So the principles that undergird how I have operated in congruence, I don't even really say things like balance. I don't know what they mean, but I know about harmony. I know about congruence, and I know about a Sabbath-led life. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not stressed. I don't think I have too much to bear. I'm running my race. I'm living my life. I'm dancing to my tune. I'm minding my business, sipping green tea, and focused on the mission that is awake in my spirit. I don't know anybody's story. I'm inspired and encouraged by everyone doing a great thing, but it's their journey, it's their story, it's their deal. This is my life. I'm not a spectator in my life. I am co-creating a legacy grid life with God.